The outback is a very challenging place for motorcycles. High speed all day, be it on the tar or be it on dirt roads with varying surfaces, from rocks like this through to sand and slippery clay. It's got everything. What an ideal place to test a bike like the Himalayan Enfield. And that's what we've been doing. 4,000 kilometres we've cracked out. It's time for me to tell you what I found out about this bike. Now, if you're new to Mad TV, we do 3 things on this channel. We do bike reviews, bike tests, and they're thorough as you can see from this one, and finally, round the world motorcycle adventures. So if you like what's on Mad TV, subscribe. This is a motorcycle test with a twist, because it's a test within a typical motorcycle adventure. Clubby is leading a ride into the outback with the goal of reaching Cameron Corner, where the borders of South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland meet. A total tour trip of 4,000 kilometres. There are a range of bikes on this adventure, including the key competitor of the Himalayan, the CFMOTO 450, as well as a Yamaha World Raid, some very special Yamaha T7s and a KTM 690. How long's his ass going to last, Ben? Hey?
He will be grumpy, won't he? In a very short while.
It provides a great opportunity to compare the Himalayan 450 adventure credentials on a typical outback ride. Along the way, we'll also bump into Yamaha Dakar racer Rod Faggoter, and he shows us his take on his very special Yamaha T700 with a 700 kilometre fuel range. Preparing my Himalayan 450 for the ultimate outback adventure took surprisingly little effort, and this prep would be almost identical to what I do for a round-the-world journey. First things first, no camping on this trip, which immediately lightened the load by about a third. But still, I needed the bike dialed in perfectly. For the added weight of my gear, I cranked up the preload on the rear suspension to the max, making sure it can handle both me and the luggage without breaking a sweat. Now, onto the mods. I made just 2, but they made a heap of difference. I swapped in a taller screen, and trust me, it was a game changer. Once we hit the faster roads outside the city, the wind buffeting vanished. My helmet stayed rock steady and the ride instantly felt more comfortable. No more battling the wind. I also fitted a set of Pirelli Rally Scorpion tyres, which seriously transformed the bike's handling on the dirt. The front end felt solid and planted and gave me confidence, while the rear stayed on track through a mix of dirt surfaces. And guess what? Even on the tarmac, the tyres didn't feel compromised. So I start with a tank bag. There's 2 different sizes in that tank bag, but that one for me is ideal for carrying my camera gear. It sits on any bike. You can put it on any bike. We've put it on a whole range of bikes and it fits. And this is the Great Basin soft bag system on the back, completely rackless. So basically, I got the Hemi at home and just threw this on the top and packed it, and that's it. Now I've taken an 8-litre fuel bladder, and because you never know in the outback, sometimes there'll be a fuel station and they'll say it's got fuel, and if you don't ring ahead, they may not have fuel and you won't know. And that's when you're thinking, oh, that looks a bit dodgy in the future, so I'll put some fuel in. But remember, the fuel range of this bike's excellent. This is a very different style of ride to what we normally do. There's nothing tight and technical. The name of the game is punching out big miles day after day at highway speeds on a range of surfaces. On the first 3 days of this ride, we would cover just under 2,000 kilometres, an average of over 650 kilometres per day.
What a week, Dave. This has been such an awesome adventure.
Yeah.
The best part is we're still only halfway through it, mate.
I know.
So much more to come. But out here, in this word outback that we keep using to describe this ride, which is appropriate, A 450cc single cylinder thumper would not be most riders' first choice of adventure machine for this ride. So give me that rap, Dave. You've ridden a 450 single all this way on the red line a lot of the time, and I've got to say, mate, we're not waiting for you at the corners, are we? How's it been on the little thumper?
You know, there's that television program Mythbusters. I think I've joined the crew because let's shatter some myths. Let's start with the engine. But this engine has kept up with all the other bikes, and we've had a blend. We've had World Rays, we've got a 690, and we've also got the CFMOTO 450 MT. But this bike has just kept up with all of them, and I can sit comfortably on this bike on those dirt roads at highway speeds and more. And yeah, the engine is, it's a strange thing, you know. If you think about the old Himalayan and you think about the new one, just throw your memory away about the old Himalayan. This one really starts to pull from 6 to 8. And if I told you it had a different power curve to the CFMOTO, and in fact has a sting in its tail right at the end, you'd probably be surprised. And then the next thing you'd say is, oh, you're rattling on a 450 single and it'll be shaking and driving you nuts. Well, no, it's as smooth as. And been very impressed with it. It's done everything I've asked of it. And not only that, it's done it economically. And yeah, when you get on the gas, yeah, you use a bit of fuel. But if you want to shave back the speed and sit on 100, 110, this tank is going to give you 17 litres plus. That's going to give you the fuel range that you want to get into the desert.
So I'm going to go straight from motor to comfort, because you need that out here on all these big miles.
Yeah.
And you're saying that it's you know, people will think of a thumper as a vibrating at high revs, uncomfortable. But I gather that's not the ride you're getting, Dave.
No, and we'll go back to engine for a minute. At 110 kilometres an hour, it's revving at about 5.3, and none of that engine noise or anything comes through to the rider. Now, let's just get this in perspective. We've done 3 600-kilometre days, so they're decent miles under our belt. I felt comfortable in the seat. The seat to handlebar length is perfect. The seat to foot peg length is excellent. The thing that I did do though, the modification I did do, went for the taller screen, and that was a godsend. It, you know, it's smooth. The airflow is just smooth. No, I was comfortable, and I can't say, you know, normally when you ride small bikes in the desert, sometimes you just wear out from the vibrations and the wind buffeting. I really didn't get that. I'm quite impressed by how this bike does big miles in the open spaces.
But you're also making it sound like that power delivery is key to having that comfort.
Yes.
And the fact you've got power high in the rev range.
Yes.
We're not calling it peaky power, are we?
No.
It's a continuation of the power.
It goes like this. If I was to explain it, it'd go whoa.
Yeah.
So, 6 to 8. So if you know, overtaking a raid train, and you are in top gear and you're doing 100 kilometres an hour, the road train's doing that, you give it that is the gateway to the access of all that power, and you can easily reach 140 quite quickly.
So let's dive from the motor and the impact that has on comfortable long distance days straight into suspension, because that's the other thing that's got to work on all that little trail trash, as we call it. But this is high-speed trail trash, and you've got to have a comfortable ride for those big mile days.
So for our overseas visitors, we're heading to Menindee Lakes, 200 kilometres of a mixture of sand and rocks like this everywhere. And this bike has excellent trail feel, both front and rear. And what surprised me, I look at that rear shock and it looks kind of cheap. That's the best way to describe it. But, you know, its performance and the front suspension's performance is excellent. I mean, I was truly surprised. I expected to be beaten up more, and I wasn't. And yeah, the suspension handles that minor stuff, both front and back, excellently. And then you'll be flying along, and then you'll come to a washout or an erosion ditch, and you know you're still clipping along at 100 plus k's. And front took that beautifully. Rear took it beautifully in 99.99% of cases. There was one instance where I bottomed out, but that's over thousands of kilometres, and it didn't bottom out with a thud.
All right, let's move into the other departments of the bike. You've touched on the ergonomics. Do you want to say more about that, Dave, for this kind of distance riding?
Yeah, a bit more on the ergonomics. That screen is a success. I just say that. Like, the airflow is just perfectly still, and the only thing I'd say is, though, when we're going through those clouds of bugs, the wind is directed to about here, right on eye height, and so you get this feed of mosquitoes coming in and just taking your vision out. But everyone, I think, Clubby, you were having problems. Everyone's having problems with bugs.
Yep.
But that was the only thing with that screen. The other thing is the reliability of the bike. We have not touched the bike. Nothing has come loose. You know, the bike has just started every time. There's no kerfuffle. And frankly, when we've been on these long rides before, there'll be one or two bikes every day that has something missing from it, something we've got a zip tie on. And mate, this has just been trouble-free.
Brakes, Dave. And I want to refer to one particular moment involving some Australian native animals, emus, high-speed running. A lot of front brake and rear brake was required at the time. Seemed to do the job just, Dave.
Yeah, well, you're more inclined to be able to tell the story better than me. I just saw this emu come out and I was doing highway speeds plus, let's say.
Yes, we
This
were.
emu came out, and for all intents and purposes, I was going to hit him. I slammed on the brakes. The brakes on this bike are another strength. The front brake is outstanding, and the rear has good feel.
So overall, Dave, it's more than held its own on this ride for a big Outback Aussie tour. So what's the overall wrap, mate? What's your call?
You know, you've got hours on the bike, you've got time to think, and I was trying to think of some catchy phrase that encapsulates how good this bike is. I mean, this is straight off the showroom floor with Pirelli tyres, which have been incidentally amazing. They're great in the dirt on this, and lift the dirt handling of this bike tremendously. And a screen, and that's all it's done, and it's just gone straight off the showroom floor. And I was thinking passport to the Outback. And then I'm thinking, because you can just get on this bike and come straight out in the Outback. We've done every bit of sorts of roads that you would do in the Outback. You've got the fuel range, you've got the comfort, you've got the suspension, and you've got the engine, and you've got the reliability. The bike has not missed a beat. And I think to myself, yeah, passport to the Outback. And then I think to myself, there's a whole bunch of skeptical people out there who go Royal Enfield, you know, and in their mind is welded set that view of the 410. This is nothing like the 410. And so, yeah, a tremendous bike. I've been very comfortable. If you said to me choices between some other bikes, I'd take this smaller capacity bike over a number of larger capacity bikes simply because of the comfort and not having to worry about fuel.
So we've been fortunate we've had both new 450s, the Himalayan,
Yep.
but also the CFMOTO 450 MT.
Yep.
You've ridden both now, Dave, on this
Yep.
trip. I need a wrap. Well, not a hard comparison, but let's give a summary, pros and cons between the two bikes.
Yeah. It's interesting. Someone, Russ said to us, this bike looks like a hipster's bike from, you know, people who'd ride around the eastern suburbs for a latte. And I said, mate, you need to get on it because there's actually a lot to this bike. And the CFMOTO, you know, it's got that styling that's KTM-esque. I hate saying that, sorry CFMOTO, but it is KTM-esque. Or Tenere-esque, actually, Mini Tenere. And that looks the business more in some regards. You know, people will have a natural tendency to draw to the CFMOTO or this. You know, this is more tradition and they've held with their tradition. But all I say to you is you really have to ride both bikes. They are just neck and neck. I honestly can't, you know, pick them. But I will highlight some of the differences in the bikes that I noticed. So in high speed, the first thing I noticed on the CFMOTO was the suspension didn't deal with the minor trail stuff at speed as well as this. It dealt with it well. This bike dealt with that more smoothly. Closed minds, Clubby, closed minds. So both bikes have the same tyres and the same air pressures, I think, as well. Yeah, I think the Hemi's got the CFMOTO in terms of that first couple of centimetres of stroke. A lot more stuff is bouncing back to me through the handlebars. Next thing is the engine. The engine power, surprisingly, on the Twin is linear, and equally as surprisingly on this, it's got a little tail to it, 6 to 8,000, where a shitload of extra power comes on that gets you out of trouble. In terms of rider seat comfort, we're still waiting on the rally seat for the CFMOTO. So I don't think it's fair to talk about that comfort, because I think once that seat's risen, you and I will be happy with that.
Yeah.
The great news out of all this is you've got two cracking bikes, both under $10,000, that can take you to the outback. And I think that's great news for adventure riding, particularly for those in the difficult financial belt, which is 50 and under, who want to taste adventure. And for those beginners, you can't go wrong with either the CFMOTO or this. The only thing that remains outstanding is long-term reliability. Now, some of the bigger manufacturers lately are having problems with long-term reliability, and the only way we'll get to know that is as riders buy these more and more, and we get to watch and monitor how their bikes go. But at the moment, you know, thousands of kilometres in the outback and nothing has gone wrong with either bikes. I think that's a pretty good indication that they're a good thing.
The Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 is a long-term loan bike for Mad TV, so there's lots more content to come. In our next episode on this bike, we take it on a more challenging technical ride. Now, while we were in the outback, we caught up with Yamaha Dakar racer Rod Faggoter, who rode with us on what may be considered the ultimate Tenere. In our next episode, we talk to Rod and dive into the detail about this amazing bike.